Who has heard of OnlyFans agency? I would love to see it. Okay, fantastic. Cool. I find this so interesting because, to be honest with you, it's always a mixed review. Some people have heard of them, some people haven't. But for me, that was my role. So I actually used to help run one of the biggest OnlyFans agencies here in Australia. And so that's how I got to firsthand see the reality of what was going on behind the scenes and what this phenomenon is. And that's what we're going to deep dive into today. And so I actually have a document that I'm going to go through with you guys. And you also can have this at the end. I really emphasize that this is a study tool. I really want everyone here to take this away, share it in your organizations, share it in your network, talk to people about it, and really look into this. Because to be honest, the more we pull on this thread of OnlyFans, this is so much bigger than, in quotation marks, us not wanting girls to do porn. As I said, this impacts the generations and it impacts our culture in such a significant way, which is why it's so important and crucial and critical that we're speaking about this. And so, to just dive right into it, what is an OnlyFans agency? And so, an OnlyFans agency exists to be able to assist creators on the platform by helping them grow their profiles and increase their earnings. These agencies offer a range of services such as account management, content strategy, and marketing advice. And the whole point of it is just to make money. It's to maximize the girls' profits because agencies take a percentage. And so the way that it traditionally works is once a creator reaches a certain point with their OnlyFans profile, they often outsource account management to agencies. And this allows professionals to maintain and grow their presence. And they play a key role in recruiting new creators to the platform and identifying potential influencers to also join and collaborate with. And so even for those that might hear this and go, okay, but what actually is OnlyFans? How does this all integrate in together? So the main allure of OnlyFans is instant messaging, and that's really important for us to understand when we're going through this. I believe that why OnlyFans has become such a bigger phenomenon than kind of mainstream digital online pornography is for this personal interaction and connection part. And so if you think about this, if you have a girl that just said hypothetically has maybe 100,000 followers on her Instagram, OnlyFans doesn't have an internal promotional platform. So you don't have a For You page, you can't go viral on OnlyFans. So what that means is that you have to externally promote the OnlyFans. And so one of the biggest allures is come chat with me on OnlyFans. And so imagine again, you have this girl who has 100,000 followers on her Instagram and she's promoting, guys, come speak with me on OnlyFans, come talk to me on OnlyFans. Well, she can't sit there and facilitate potentially thousands of conversations 24/7, 7 days a week with all these subscribers. So that's why she has to offset that work to an agency. And so this is really important to understand in this. And even just some other interesting things, I think, anyways, about OnlyFans itself. Just for a bit of context, the platform actually started in 2016. And in 2020 is when it blew up as a not safe for work platform. So originally, supposedly, the idea of OnlyFans was to decentralize mainstream social media. It was to be able to have people come on and monetize smaller, intimate communities, again, through this instant messaging. But during COVID, it just blew up. And there's statistics that say that there's anywhere from 75% to 95% of all content on OnlyFans is now not safe for work content. And what I find even more interesting is recently the owner of OnlyFans actually passed away. And they were kind of deep diving into his past. Since a teenager, he has actually been hosting and creating and owning porn platforms. And so it's just always a curiosity piece for me of, did it always have potentially innocent beginnings, or was this always the way that it was supposed to go and what it was supposed to turn into? I don't have the answer. I just find it interesting and thought-provoking. And so that's, again, hopefully a little bit of context about OnlyFans as we now dive into agencies and what the role of an agency is. And so for me, why did I think it was okay to work for an OnlyFans agency? Well, my background is actually in business. So before I got involved in the OnlyFans agency, I was building hospitality restaurants. I've been in startups for many, many years. I've been in every single element of sales that you can possibly think of. I have done. I have done full commission sales. I've done where you go up to people on the street and get them to buy skincare, like everything you can imagine. I love business and I love sales. And so what happened for me is I was working, as I said, in hospitality. And anyone who has worked in hospitality knows that it's probably one of the most brutal industries that you can work in. And we were working 100-hour work weeks, building restaurants, managing restaurants, and it was exhausting. And so I decided that I needed to go away on a holiday. And when I went away on this holiday and had a break, one of my friends had decided that they wanted to start this business of an OnlyFans agency. And so the reason why they wanted to start the agency is because they actually had friends that at the time were some of our biggest OnlyFans girls here in Australia. And a lot of them were very successful as well in the US. And those girls were complaining about their agencies. And so my friend, her educational background is she was actually an ex-criminal defense lawyer. So an incredibly well-educated and smart woman. And she goes, well, we have friends that are in the industry. They're complaining about their agency. I have this exceptional educational background. I can do all the legalities, contracts, everything like that. Why don't we start an agency and why don't we get Victoria involved? She's actually the one who has the business expertise and she'll know what to do. She knows how to market. She knows how to do all the sales. And so when I'd come back from my trip overseas in Europe, my friend approached me and was like, hey, are you interested in being a part of this with us? And so for me, there was so many reasons why I thought it was okay to work for an agency. One of the biggest is I didn't want to work in hospitality anymore. I was exhausted. But the biggest reason is because I didn't know what it was. I've heard of OnlyFans. It's been interjected into our culture. And this is why this is so important. The way that this is portrayed in our mainstream media is so deceptive. And so these are two examples that I love to show of exclusive Britney Spears staggering OnlyFans earning potential revealed. And it's more than she ever made from music. What do we think that's doing to people, right? Britney Spears, this megastar, and oh wow, wait a minute. She could have earned way more just doing OnlyFans. And then it also poses a thing of, well, why should I go dream on any other dreams? Why should I chase perhaps being a singer or doing anything else if I can jump onto OnlyFans and make more money than Britney ever did singing? And then this one, for those who know who Iggy Azalea is, she's pretty well known in America, but she was actually an Aussie rapper that came over to the States. And this is another news article that says, Iggy Azalea boasts she's spending her OnlyFans earnings on cars, boats, and diamonds, and admits her only goal is to get even richer after making millions on the adult website. And so these are just two very small examples of millions and millions of articles that exist all over the world that just promote this narrative that OnlyFans is this get-rich-quick scheme. It's the easiest type of money you can make. And it's basically the pinnacle of success now and the dreams that you should dream. But it never talks about the fact that this is porn. And so for me, coming into this, I was like, well, I don't really know. I've heard about OnlyFans. It seems like a great business opportunity. As I said, one of the owners was a criminal defense lawyer. The other two had successful OnlyFans backgrounds, I guess you could say. And I was like, this seems like a positive. We can see from those articles, it sounds fantastic. It seems liberating. It seems like a platform where people could sell honestly anything and they could make a lot of money. And it was a low barrier entry, high reward. And so even things that still to this day when I speak, I always say, I just thought people could go on there and just sell their feet. And so many people believe that and still think that that's just what this platform is. But as we come through now, we're going to see that this is just not the reality of it. But as I even write here, and as you guys go through this is again just way more of the information. This is where the statistics are referenced and where I've gotten a lot of the stuff about how it's not safe for work content. So that's for you guys to just follow up and really have a look into. But this is the exact perspective that I had getting into this. And honestly, millions of people around the world still have about OnlyFans. And so we're going to come now into the three main elements of what actually is an OnlyFans agency. And so element number one of an agency is account management. And so one of the biggest draws to OnlyFans compared to traditional adult content is this illusion of personal connection. And so as we just mentioned before, unlike mainstream adult content where viewers consume media of nameless and faceless individuals, so OnlyFans creates a direct and intimate relationship between the creator and the subscriber. And so the way that this is done is through personalized interactions. Fans follow creators that they've seen on social media. And so that builds this parasocial sense of familiarity, exclusivity, and relationship. Then from here, inside OnlyFans itself on the platform, the main ways you make money is through custom requests. And so subscribers can request specific content that is tailored to their personal preferences. And this also creates a deeper level of engagement. That's one of the biggest ways you actually make money is through the custom requests on OnlyFans. Then the next is pay-per-views. And so pay-per-view content sends out mass content to all subscribers, but it remains locked until the fan pays for it. This allows creators to maximize earnings beyond just the monthly subscription fee. And so this entire system is strategically managed by agencies, ensuring creators maintain a high engagement, maximize revenue, and keep fans feeling personally connected, when in reality, many of these interactions are not even run by the girls themselves. And so this is just an image I took from Google of a screenshot and what it looks like. So this is what a pay-per-view locked content looks like. And then this is what the interactions will look like. And so every single day, basically, you create a tailor-made custom plan, and we'll speak about that in a little bit. Actually, we might not have time to today, but in this, you guys can actually go through that. But you create a custom-made tailor plan of how many pay-per-views you send out, all the different type of content, so you can try and, again, maximize the earning potential on these accounts. And so that's just an example of what it looks like. And so in the onboarding for account management, this part here is really important for people to understand, because one of the main arguments that I hear, and to be honest, I even hear this in activism world sometimes, is that this is the better option for girls. It's the safer option, and it gives girls more autonomy and more freedom, and it's what's giving them choice. And so just within the account management onboarding process, you have to do this thing called a questionnaire. And so you get the girls, once they're recruited and they've come through the onboarding process, to fill out this questionnaire. And on this is every single piece of information that you can possibly think of that you're trying to get about the girl. And so from here, there's this thing called the levels, because you want to know what level of content is this girl comfortable doing. And so we have here level 1, Instagram content, bikini and lingerie. Level 2, implied nudity. Level 3, full nudity. And I'm sorry for the language, but level 4 is everything but anal. And level 5 is everything. And so I want you guys to think about this. We're going to really deep dive into it. But imagine you're someone like me who has now been recruited to an agency. You don't really know what OnlyFans is. You think you can jump on there. I'm just going to sell my feet. I have all this autonomy. I have this agency. They're going to help me. You come through the questionnaire, and it's getting all the deepest, most intimate personal questions that you can possibly have about you. And then you come to these levels and you go, oh, wait a minute. I thought that I could just sell my feet on here. And then you're telling me that this is what I have to do. Oh, and is there a scale that I have to now climb? Is there a ladder that I have to climb? And so this is why this is so deeper. I call it manufactured consent. And so this tactic is a form of coercive psychology that manipulates perceived autonomy while subtly guiding individuals toward higher risk behaviors. And this is how it works. It creates a false sense of security and respect. By introducing levels in the onboarding process, the agency appears to respect the performer's boundaries. The questionnaire makes it seem as though the performer is in control of what type of content they create. And this structured approach gives the illusion of safety and empowerment, making the agency appear professional and supportive. And then there's an implied hierarchy and social comparison here. So once inside the agency, performers quickly realize that the lowest level is not where they should be. It is framed as the starting point and not an acceptable place to stay. The very existence of levels creates an unspoken expectation to progress up the scale. Seeing their choice places them at the bottom and makes them feel inadequate or behind, and subtly pushes them to do more. And I have a friend, some of you may know who she is. Her name's Nala Ray, and she talks about this very openly. And we've had this conversation where she's said verbatim, if I never had an agency, I never would have done the things that I did. They pushed every single boundary that I had, and just pushed me in a way that I never thought. I have another friend here in Australia. Her name's Haley. Same thing, was very big on OnlyFans, and was like, Vic, before I jumped on OnlyFans, I was insecure to be in a bikini. And then before you knew it, she was getting into escorting, prostitution, all of this. And it's because of this process of escalation and influence from agencies to get her to do more. And that's what led her into that position. And so this is why it's really important to understand this, even when we're in daily conversations, whatever it may be, of course, in the work we do, but to be like, hey, it's actually not what you guys think it is. It's really not this liberating thing. The girls don't have the autonomy that you think that they do. And so even without directly forcing performers to escalate their content, the agency exerts soft pressure and manipulation. And so one of the ways I love to explain the difference between like hard manipulation and soft manipulation is it's so subtle, right? Imagine we're all together in a room and there's lights on, and I said, can one of you guys turn the lights off? It's really bright. But imagine if I sat there and I was like, it's really bright in here, don't you guys think? And then one of you went, oh, I'll turn the lights off. That's actually soft manipulation, because I'm trying to get you to do something but make you think that you want to do it. And that's a very basic example, but that's how subtle the difference is. And that's exactly what this is. It's soft manipulation. And so the way that this is done is when agency members dismiss lower level creators as naive or unrealistic for expecting to make money, it reinforces the idea that staying at a low level is not viable. There's also frustration from management. If performers are met with impatience or judgment for staying at lower levels, they internalize that they must step up to be taken seriously. And this is real, because we would have girls that would complain about how much money they're earning, and we would look at their level, and as a culture behind the scenes, we would be like, well, what does she expect? She's only a level 1. So what do you think that culture is then bringing out into the girls at the agency? And so from there, you also normalize the escalation. And so when everyone else is doing more and you're encouraging the girl, well, why don't you go content collaborate with this girl? Or why don't you go do a shoot day with her or something like that? You're again slowly influencing and soft manipulating her to go and do more and more, because she's like, oh, well, I guess if they want me to go do stuff with her, what she does is normal, so I have to go do that. And so even just to reiterate this even more, we got rid of level 1. And so that was my idea. We had realized over a period of time that girls that were at Instagram and bikini level made no money. And so I said, well, why don't we just get rid of level 1 and then have level 1 as implied nudity? So again, the whole allure of OnlyFans to a degree is jump on, you can make a bunch of money, you don't really have to show anything, you don't do anything, you can just sell your feed on there. Well, we can already see within just the onboarding process and just within the questionnaire that that whole illusion is totally shattered, because now you're inaugurated into this ecosystem that's telling you your baseline minimum is implied nudity. And so is this really positive, empowering, liberating, consensual? Or is this the same type of exploitation that we've seen? And OnlyFans just uses different words to be able to show it. And so what happens from here is once you do the questionnaire, that gets turned into this thing called the brief. And so the brief was created to give to these things called chatters. And so as I kind of alluded to at the beginning of this document, and what we've spoken about is, now that we understand the business mechanisms behind this, again, if you have hundreds of thousands of people potentially being funneled in to a girl's OnlyFans, and we now know that the main point of OnlyFans is connection, well, how can you sit there talking to these subscribers all day? We can't, the girl can't. So you need someone to do it. And so that's where chatters come into play. And so I actually just recently was on a phone call with a journalist, and he's like, yeah, my cousin's a chatter in the Philippines. She gets paid $2 an hour and 2% commission to do it. Like, it's so normal. It's crazy, guys. But chatters are cheap labor that are hired from third world countries. Ours were from the Philippines, and they're paid anywhere from $1 to $5 an hour. They work 6 to 7 days a week, on often 12 to 16 hour days. And each chatter is responsible for multiple girls' accounts at once, and they constantly switch between them. And so this in itself violates OnlyFans guidelines. You're only supposed to have one person on the account, but agencies hack into the back end and have these chatters jumping and switching between accounts. This is why they're so underground, and why, like, as soon as you understand agencies, it shatters the entire illusion of OnlyFans. But each chatter, as I said, is responsible for multiple girls. That's why they have the brief, because they need to be able to reference this constantly. And they have sales targets. So it's a commission-based role. And what they're trained in is this thing called the girlfriend experience. And this is a manipulation tactic designed to make subscribers feel emotionally connected to the girl. And so again, if we put on our business brains here, you're not going to be sitting there and sexting with someone 24/7, right? Because that's not keeping customer and client retention. So how do you pull in long-term clients? You build a relationship with them. It's like any business, any product. You want people to feel personally connected to the product that they're buying to keep them coming back. Well, this is the same thing here. So what you're doing is you're creating these, again, parasocial relationships with these chatters that are trained in the girlfriend experience. And so the whole point is to lure men in, make them believe that they have a relationship with some capacity with this girl. And then from there, they are hooked, I guess you could say, is the easiest way, right? You really harness the weakest essence of a man and pull them into that. And that's what they're trained in. And something that I find really interesting about the fact that we call it the girlfriend experience, there's statistics out there that say that supposedly, I believe it's 89.7% of OnlyFans subscribers are married men. You can actually find the statistic on my Creating Gems page just to confirm it. But isn't that fascinating? That why is the girlfriend experience working so well on married men? I just find it, again, something that's a deeper conversation to be had, but also what does that do culturally for our relationships for men? This is why this is so much bigger than what we really think it is. I would love for you guys to also have a look through this in your own time, please. It's the account audit. This is just, again, all the little different things that you do as a account manager. Everything that you look through, this is way more of that targeted methods that we use on the OnlyFans accounts to be able to monetize them and maximize earning potential on them. But just for the sake of time, I think that's fantastic for you guys to go through yourselves. Because what I really want to get into is the marketing strategy here, because this as well is so important to understand. And so stage 3 is developing the marketing strategy. And so after auditing the account, the next steps was to create a custom strategy to maximize engagement and revenue. And so this phase is crucial because unlike traditional audit content, OnlyFans relies heavily on direct-to-consumer marketing. And so why this is so important is because, what this does is this helps for people to understand why this is such a big phenomenon. And so what we would do is we would go from the onboarding process, you do the questionnaire, you do the brief, you send that through to the chatters, and then the girls would come to me. So this was my job, this was my role to build out the marketing division of this agency. And so what does the marketing strategy involve? Well, what it is you basically need to get a girl on a call and get her hyped for her content. Because one of the main arguments, again, of OnlyFans, right, is that this is easy work. Well, this shatters all of that just in this. And so my role was to get on a call with the girl and get her excited for her content requirements. The goal was to establish a consistent brand identity, whether that was the girl next door, fitness model, alternative, edgy, or whatever other persona that would appeal to their audience. And so, as we've already said, since OnlyFans doesn't have an organic discovery feature, external platforms were the main driver of traffic. So girls were guided on how to leverage Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Reddit to attract new subscribers. So we analyzed which platforms work the best and then tailored content to drive traffic to the OnlyFans page. And so how you do this is you get on a call with a girl and you are getting her excited to make 3 to 5 TikTok accounts. And on each of those TikTok accounts, you're getting her to create up to 5 unique videos per account. And so that's up to 20 unique videos every single day of very specific, targeted, curated content. And so what I have here is a direct screenshot of what we would get girls to do. And so if you read this, this was taken from the guy that we had hired who would study algorithms. And so, hey, Victoria, as discussed, here are the TikTok standards we'll be following to ensure maximum performance from every upload. And so 5 TikToks every day, no exceptions, no more than 5, no less than 5. These sounds need to be posted to as many profiles as possible. No skipping days. As soon as they skip a day, they will lose all their progress and views will instantly drop. If they can't post, they will need to create drafts the day before. Imagine you guys got hired for a brand new job, and when you have a look at the job requirements, they tell you can never take a day off. Like, so much for this is easy work. Don't worry. It's so simple. Like, immediately. And these are the guidelines. And this is just for social media. We didn't even get into the content that's required on the OnlyFans page. And so sticking only to the video examples, which I'll show you in a moment, we are working very hard to make sure TikTok is sending their videos out to a specific audience. As soon as they deviate from that, the formula, they will be shown to other audiences, which will hurt the consistent growth. No reposting, so that's really important because, again, you can't just make one video and post it on 5 accounts. So you need to make, again, up to 5 videos per account, but then you can't repost those because TikTok will know. And so if anyone here has done content creation, they will understand the magnitude of how much that is. That is in itself like a 40-hour work week, just doing this alone. More energy. A lot of the times the girls are quite passive in their videos. It'll only hurt their views. The TikToks can't be too long. They need to keep them to 5 to 6 seconds for the best results. Good lighting, wider frames. Previews need to be showing what's in the video with the exception of flash and mirror challenges. If this isn't being showcased, they need to go back and adjust all the previews. Multiple body parts. A lot of the time, they will only be showcasing one body part. By doing this, they are alienating and losing out on all the people who prefer one of the other body parts, which is, again, just crazy. And so here as well is just kind of like a little bit of a day-to-day of what it would look like. So here's what needs to get done. All the girls who don't have 3 TikTok accounts set up need to get that done. 2 IG accounts, 3 pinned posts. Everyone has beacons. Everyone's IG will need to install all 3 links for the TikTok accounts. And then from there, we'll work on the Reddit campaigns. Now, I don't have time to go through the Reddit campaigns, but this is what's really interesting as well. On TikTok and on Instagram, it's very specific what you can post, and we'll talk about this here. But on Reddit and on Twitter at the time, you can post anything. And so that's where we would see a lot of resistance with the girls because we're wanting to post their porn on those platforms. And they don't want that. But we would say, well, this is what we need to post because of the level and magnitude of what's on those platforms. We need to have that come through. And so this here is just a screenshot of what it would look like. So this was all done on Telegram. And so every single day, our marketing expert would send us through these videos and they would have different captions, different hashtags. And in this, you would have like the trending song as well. And he would send us about 5 to 10 of these every day. And then we would send them across to the girls. And this is what they would have to recreate. And so why this is so significant is because what this is on social media within itself, there is this massive OnlyFans phenomenon. This is why it's so famous, why it's so influential, because you have these very specific and sophisticated teams behind the scenes that are manipulating algorithms to be able to go mega viral on these platforms. And so doing these methods, we would get girls in 7 days on like a brand new TikTok account to like 2.2 million views. Of this highly curated, very intentional, as I say here, it was not organic growth. It was highly manufactured and optimized to make it look like these girls were naturally blowing up, when in reality, every step was strategically planned behind the scenes. And so why this matters is for multiple reasons. It's an aggressive marketing strategy. And it's not just about getting subscribers. It's about shaping culture and softly influencing perspectives. As we kind of said, I travel the world now doing this. And I have had so many little girls in tears in my arms crying because they're like, I watch OnlyFans girls content on TikTok and I thought that that's how I had to act. And I ended up doing things with boys that I wish that I didn't do. And I don't know how to deal with the shame. And so this is again influencing a culture in a huge way. It's not just influencing girls to go do OnlyFans, but this type of content is so attractive to the younger generation. It's entertaining. If anyone here knows who the Bop House is, and we can talk about that in a moment, they'll know about this too. And so it's so important to understand why this is a cultural phenomenon. But what this does as well is, as I say here, softly influencing culture and redefining desirability. It's not just about selling content, it's about redefining what's considered attractive and normal. The constant push of hypersexualized content into mainstream spaces normalizes this OnlyFans culture. It creates an illusion that this is what a desirable woman looks like, acts like, and posts like. The more this type of content becomes popular, the more it's shifted cultural norms, making people believe that this was the standard for attractiveness and empowerment. This is why so many young women today see OnlyFans as normal and empowering career choice, because it's been marketed to them as that. I even remember I was speaking in a school 2 years ago, I believe now, and I'm talking about all the different influencers, and I had these two 15-year-old girls come up to me and ask if I knew this specific influencer. And I said, I don't know her personally, but I know her from TikTok. I'm assuming you watch her TikToks too. And they said, yeah. I was like, okay, cool. So what do you like about them? And she goes, well, she seems happy and she travels. And I was like, okay, cool. So do you think to be happy and to travel, you have to do OnlyFans? And they're like, well, yeah. How else am I going to be happy and travel and achieve my dreams? And it's because of this phenomenon of what we're posting online that young people are not correlating that they can achieve their dreams. Something as simple as being happy and travel, and that it's not achieved through OnlyFans. It is crazy. And then obviously for our young men, why this is so important to understand as well, these marketing tactics. One of the examples that I give, so you know how here it talked about the flash mirror challenges. They were the easiest way to pique men's curiosity and lure them into the platform. And so one of these tactics that we mirror, and I really apologize about the lighting. I thought that I put the blind down enough, so I hope that this isn't too frustrating for people. But imagine you had this big, massive makeup mirror, big mirror, and you had these little compact mirrors, and it's scanning across. You've got all of these sitting here on the table, and it's scanning across, and you have this super sexualized song playing in the background, right? And then the caption just says, did you see it? And so you're sitting there and you're going, did I see it? Did I see what? And so that's what these mirror challenges are, these multiple body parts, right? Because then before you know it, you're watching this again and again and again and again. And then you just see a woman's body in one of the mirrors. You see her in lingerie, you see her in this thing, and it piques men's curiosity. And so then they're going to go to click on that TikTok page, right? And it's just this very suggestive, as it says as well, sometimes 5 to 6 seconds, little snippets of things. And again, you've got this music playing, you've got all this, like imagine that experience for some young kid that has no idea what's happening. And then he goes and he clicks onto the Instagram. And then on Instagram, you've got even more. And then from there, you go into the stories, and the stories say, come chat with me, link in bio. And then before you know it, you're on a porn platform and you have this chatter that's trained in the girlfriend experience, literally just waiting for you. And so I think this is why it's so important to understand the power and the role of social media in this and what it's doing, because OnlyFans doesn't actually have an age verification for subscribers. So you can be whatever age you want and joining up to OnlyFans. So that's really significant and important to understand, again, for our younger generation. What is this doing to young boys? And I've even, for those of you who know who Lily Phillips is, this is so fascinating to me. Our version of spring break is called Schoolies, when all of the high school students go and celebrate, finishing high school. And Bonnie Blue and Lily Phillips, two of the biggest OnlyFans creators, I guess we have in the world, they will always go to Schoolies and they promote that they have sex with barely legal boys and they film it for their OnlyFans. The boys are obsessed. There's a video out there of these young boys that are like, oh my gosh, Lily Phillips knows who I am. And this guy goes, do you actually really think that she knows who you are? And he goes, yeah, of course she does. What do you mean? Like, I'm going to marry her. And he's like, bro, she doesn't care. She doesn't know who you are. But again, do you see how targeted and intentional and strategic this is to literally manipulate young men into thinking that these OnlyFans girls care about them, that they like them, that they have relationships with them? A majority of the time when you're talking with subscribers, it's not, again, necessarily sexualized conversations, but it's intimacy. Like, we would have subscribers ask us about, can you just like play a scenario that's like romantic? And we would say, okay, we're lying down, there's stars, we're holding hands, we're looking in each other's eyes. Tell me something you've never told anyone before. And then the subscriber like pours out his heart to this woman. And so I think that this is why it's so dangerous. And really, again, important to understand, because then what it's making men think is, again, this is what is desirable. Why am I going to go have other relationships? But then again, for young boys, you can see kind of the complexities in this. So I know that I'm really kind of doubling down on this, but I think it's so important to understand, because a lot of the times as well with our young people, us as adults to some capacity have existed in a world without social media. So we understand a little bit that this isn't real. Even though for my generation, I'm 27, they still get so pulled into this. But they don't understand that this isn't real. This is their reality. So I think that this is why it's so important to understand the mechanics behind this, because then it better equips us to know how to speak to our young people, how to educate people on this, and give our young people critical analytical skills. So then they can look at this and go, wait a minute, okay, maybe this isn't real. Maybe this isn't what I thought it was. So again, I really just want to emphasize how important that is, how important the marketing is, because it's not wise, I think, to just say, well, let's get young people off social media. That's not going to happen. Even here in Australia, they've just recently put a ban on under 16. So I sit at like dinner tables with 16-year-olds, not even younger, 14-year-olds with their parents, and like, oh yeah, I still have my TikTok. I still have my Instagram. It's so easy to hack it. Like, so this is why we need to be able to equip our young people so they can know how to navigate this in a really healthy way. And that's going to mitigate a lot of issues within itself. So again, that's just why this is so important to understand. And I really want you guys to study this, look at this, and implement this in your unique worlds and in your unique missions. And so one of the biggest phenomenons that we have in this is the Bop House. And so the Bop House has some of the biggest OnlyFans influencers in the world right now. And I was literally just in the Netherlands speaking about this, and those two 20-year-old girls in the Netherlands, that shocked me, to be honest. They're like, yeah, we watch Bop House content. And they told me the same thing. They watch Sophie Rain, they watch these girls, and they think that that's how they have to act. And they get very influenced by this. And this doesn't really matter, to be honest, what your faith background is. It doesn't really matter any of these things. I see this no matter where I speak, that it influences people. Just to really, again, emphasize how important this is. Because one of the biggest things I see with parents, and I don't know about anyone else here, is they think, well, my child wouldn't. They know better. And it's like, unfortunately, it really doesn't matter. This is how powerful social media is. And so the Bop House is a really interesting correlation as well to draw between the sexualizing of young girls and then the rise of child pornography that we're seeing, especially here in Australia. But the Bop House, again, you can have a look at some of the examples I've given you guys to look at. But it's a group of girls that live in Florida, and they create this childlike content together. They create all this drama and everything like that. And it's just a mass marketing scheme to promote their OnlyFans. But it's interesting, it's entertaining, you get hooked on it. And I even have had a friend in Redding, California, tell me that her daughter came home from school about maybe a year and a half ago, 14-year-old, and was like, Mum, you'll never guess what's happening at school. All the girls are storing up their content on Instagram because the Bop House registrations are open. And so we have a phenomenon, especially in America, of little girls that are posting pornographic images on Instagram in the hopes that when they're 18, they can go join the Bop House. Even a really interesting thing to look into is this Piper Raquel, who was underage, hanging out with the Bop House girls. And as soon as she turned 18, she went and jumped onto OnlyFans. This, again, is a huge conversation to be had about the sexualizing of children. GQ just did a article as well. I know I'm giving a lot, but this is really important, guys. With Sophie Rain. And if you read the comments on it, people are like, why does she look like a child? Is that a tactic? And it's just really important to understand what's going on with the Bop House, because this is what's influencing our culture globally, the biggest with the young generation. And that's the recruitment tactic, right? That's how you keep people in this and keep people continuing to want to become OnlyFans girls, to subscribe to OnlyFans. And if we can really understand that and go hard at that, we're really going to be able to see a huge shift and change in this. And so, just to kind of slowly start to wrap everything up, the power of sex worker, TikTok, and social media influence, again, is one of the biggest influences that we have in this world. So I really want you guys to have a look through this. I've even given you some accounts here of some influencers that have really shaped this. And it's really good to study this and understand who is being influenced by these target demographics. Ari Kitsia is a huge one as well. She now gets mainstream contracts with L'Oreal. She got invited to go to a college in America to speak about entrepreneurship. This is how integrated sex work now is in our culture. So again, the deception here, right, is huge. But again, if we use the correct language, this is sex workers, this is porn, this is pimps, this is agencies. And look at the power of agencies, guys. Look at what they've been able to do through their marketing. And that's why this is such a big phenomenon. And so this is the recruitment tactic that we would use. So I would love for you guys to go through this as well. This is the outreach. So this is a direct screenshot again of what we would send girls, and it would work. Again, you're promoting this lifestyle. You're pointing out these girls. How amazing are they? How cute are they? And people have asked, like, how many hits did you get? I'm like, to be honest, everyone was interested, because now we understand the phenomenon from social media. Of course, if you get a message like this, it's going to entice so many women. And so I know we're going to come into a time of question and answers, but I really as well would love for you to read through this of how can we be equipped to navigate this. So this is again a really big deep dive into parents and educators, individuals, social media users, which is kind of almost every single person on the planet, and practical steps to protect ourselves and protect others. So, and again, the language that I've been using constantly through this is we need to shatter this illusion, because this is what it is. And then from there, empowering men. We now understand how men are so targeted in this. It's not to demonize men. It doesn't negate responsibility and accountability, but it is very important. And educating parents on this. And so that is basically the run through. Again, if you really, I would love for you guys to all get this document, read it, study it, take this into your spheres, and continue to have this conversation, because I believe it's so important, and we've kind of just really scratching the surface on the significance of OnlyFans. So thank you all so much. I know that it was probably a lot, but thank you for listening. And I believe we're going to do a little bit of a Q&A now, correct, Alexis?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for giving that. It's so, this is the second time that I've heard Victoria give this presentation, and I think for service providers specifically across the globe, how crucial it is to understand the complexities that come with OnlyFans and agencies and how things happen, in order to better educate the girls and the women that are coming in, and also to provide support to them when they do come into your program or they do need support. So just thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Now, everyone, we have about 10 minutes that you feel free to ask anything. If you want to unmute and ask a question, just go ahead and have either your hand raised or something so I can do it in order, or if you would rather put it in the chat. We also had some questions sent in prior that I can ask, but I want to open it up to the people who are here first. It looks like we already have one question from Sarah. She said, what percentage of girls would you estimate are part of agencies versus independent or managing their own account?
That's a really great question. I would believe that majority of girls would have an agency, to be honest with you. I think it would only be the very, very small creators, so the girls that maybe have like a couple hundred followers on their Instagram and then have decided to jump onto OnlyFans. It's not worked out, and then they've deleted their account within 3 to 6 months. But anyone who's probably a little bit more long term, anywhere from that 6+ months, I would be very confident in assuming to some capacity would have an agency. But also agencies, the whole point is to target and bring girls in. So I would say, again, long-winded, but majority of them, I would really feel confident in saying would have an agency to some capacity.
Is that the case for even overseas? Like, for example, it would be Asia or something like that?
Yeah, well, what's fascinating is so that guy that we had hired to study algorithms, this is a whole thing in itself of like the Andrew Tate phenomenon. He's really encouraged men to create agencies and be pimps. And I actually met a man in the Netherlands as well who was used to run with Andrew Tate back in the day. And he was an independent agency owner. So Ben, the one who I said was in our marketing, who we had hired, he would target girls in South America. So he would specifically look for girls in those demographics because it would niche out. So again, hopefully that's helping with the context of there's probably a lot of rogue men that do that because I saw that. And it would definitely be the same case, I would assume, in Asia of they're a niche. There's something that is really monetizable. It wouldn't shock me at all if girls would be jumping on OnlyFans and agencies would be really wanting to capitalize on it.
Okay, the next question is, could you share with us an average of how much money girls earn per month?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So the average wage of an OnlyFans girl is $180 a month. So there was there's 4.5 million content creators, I believe, on OnlyFans as of the end of 2025, and only 300 make more than $1 million a year.
Yeah. That's always a crazy statistic to me. I'm always like, because you assume that they're making so much money. With the way it's promoted, I think it's always promoted that they would be the making millions of dollars, and so to hear a statistic like that, we can also see that with human trafficking, with sex trafficking survivors in the more typical way that I suppose that we see. The next question is, I work with adult survivors of human trafficking, and many struggle to develop income after leaving trafficking. How would you recommend supporting these women and protecting them from getting into OnlyFans? Would you say education for them or something to protect them from then going into it and seeing it as an option?
Yeah. Definitely. This is such a tension, even I see with, women that leave OnlyFans. It's so difficult to find a job. So something that we've been really trying to develop, to be honest, behind the scenes is what can we actually do for these women, especially in a 21st century. I'm talking specifically, I'm not too sure what the main demographic is here for you, Shelby, but in America, in the UK, in Australia, in these kind of first world countries, is how can we help women to leave these industries but still create their dreams, right? And one of the biggest things that we've seen is, okay, how can we teach them to show up online but not in the way that they once used to? And so how can we help them rebrand their social media? How can we help give them different skills? Maybe they want to learn how to become a makeup artist. Maybe they want to learn how to be a PT, or like these different things now that women really want to do. And I think that that's what's really important, is how can we let them know you do have other options. One of my friends left OnlyFans. She was a repo agent for a little bit, but she went live on TikTok for 3 hours every single day. That is now her full-time income. She's a TikToker, and she gets to share her story with people. And it's really cool to see the unique and different ways that we can be helping women leave. Some start fashion brands. One of my friends is starting a cat cafe. So I think that it is education, but it's also being really creative and remembering, helping these women to remember that they're so talented. They have dreams. Let's get you dreaming again. What do you want to do? And how can we utilize the internet to do that? Because a lot of the times, they do have platforms to some degree, but everyone kind of wants to show up digitally now. So I think that that's one of the most important things, is how can we get really creative and use 21st century skills, e-com, digital products, being an online coach. Like there's an endless way that we can do it. I think it's, again, sitting down, taking time, getting these women excited to dream again. And that's how we're really able to help them to see, no. Like when my friend decided she wanted to do the cat cafe, she's like, there's no way I'm going to go back to OnlyFans. I love cats. I want to foster cats. I want people to come to this cafe and see. So I get so excited about this, but hopefully that answers your question. Get the girls to dream again and use 21st century skills that we have to be able to help equip them, I believe, into finding a different career path.
Thank you, Victoria. Does anybody have any other questions? I do want to ask you, well, I guess I have a question. I do want to ask you for, so Shelby was talking about trafficking survivors who then graduate from a program and preventing them from going into OnlyFans. But I want to think the flip-flop way. So women who are going into OnlyFans who want to leave. So you're talking about friends that you have or women that you've met. Do your friends or the women that you've met have serious effects that are making them have trouble with living their life once they leave OnlyFans, in terms of that they need serious support, like a program or a service provider that is out there that they've shared with you, or something like that, that shows how much it's affecting their mental health and their ability to actually live their life?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe it's the exact same. So the same way that if you have a woman who's come through trafficking and you want to help her again to dream dreams after she's had the appropriate support, same is needed in OnlyFans. A lot of my friends that are either in it or have just recently come out of it, the mental health, the fragility, they've been through, severe trauma. A lot of the times they've had, many horrible things that have led them to do OnlyFans. So they need a place and space too. And it's very difficult to find support for them. So yeah, they absolutely need that as well.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think that's something that us as a field needs to continue thinking about in terms with the service providers and what we're all providing when we do have women who are coming out of OnlyFans, and what that does shift in programming, or if it doesn't shift in programming. I don't know. I don't know the complexities that come with that level of trauma. But if that does shift things, that's something that I think is really important, us as a field, to be discussing and keeping in mind with service providers. Does anybody have any questions? Who else is here before I'll ask one more question that's coming from somebody who sent it in previously, but I want to give you guys first dibs. No? Okay. Let me look. I just want to pick one more. Oh, this is the one that I wanted you to do. What led you to leaving doing an agency with OnlyFans?
Yeah. So what happened for me is I'm working in OnlyFans world, and I was doing all the marketing that we already went through today. And now we know that the main role of an agency is impersonating being the girl, right? So I'm doing all the marketing, and the OnlyFans account manager is doing all the OnlyFans account management. And what we had started to realize is subscribers were picking up on holes in our story. And so they're talking to the girl on Instagram and then on OnlyFans. And because us as management, we're not communicating, well, they started to go, wait a minute, like, what's going on here? Like, is this really you? I'm talking to you here, but you don't know what's happening over there. And so we realized that we needed to change the business structure. So I went from doing all the marketing to now doing less girls and doing account management and marketing. And so that's when I actually jumped onto the back end of OnlyFans for the first time. And I saw that what we were doing is porn. And for me personally, I've actually never been a consumer of pornography. So I'm seeing porn for the first time, and it's my friends. And so I am devastated. I explained it. I was just malfunctioning. I'm crying every single day. I can't open up my laptop. I can't do my job because I'm just like, wait a minute, these girls are so exceptional. They're so smart, they're so kind, they're so funny. And these are the dreams that we're telling them to dream. And it just sent me on a journey of figuring out what is going on. Personally, for me, I had a lot of substance abuse issues at that time. And I was like, nothing's making me feel better anymore. Nothing's numbing me out. What can I do? Because my world is telling me this is the pinnacle of success, but this doesn't feel good. And so I went, I know, maybe if I do a big enough act of good, that will offset all the bad that I'm doing, and that'll make me feel better about myself. So I went, okay, well, what's a big enough act of good? And I went, I know, I'll go overseas and I'll help refugees. Like, that's so dramatic that has to calm me out, right? And so I went, okay, well, how the heck do I do that? Because I was actually building another business at the time. And so I was like, by the time I go overseas, I can help a bunch of refugees. The medicinal cannabis business that we were building, that'll be up and running by then. I'll come back, calmed myself out, don't have to work at the agency anymore. Happy days, I'm a genius. And so I was like, how do I go and help refugees? And I remembered as a very young child, I stopped going to this church when I was about 8 years old. But this church that I went to growing up had a refugee program. So I remember I Googled the church, I signed up for this refugee program, and about a week later, I get a call from a young adults pastor. And they were like, hi, we heard you'd like to come down to the church. Can I invite you to come this Thursday? And I thought it was like the vetting process of like what, I don't know, refugee Christian vetting process. I had no idea, guys. But it was so interesting. I found out that that application never went to the outreach department, but the young adults pastor had received an email and it said, Victoria wants to reach out to the church. Here's her number, call her. And so that's why I was getting this call. And I know that I saw the email months later. And so I remember arriving to this church and going inside and word vomiting for hours to this young adults pastor that I sell porn. Everyone tells me that it's good, but it feels bad and I don't know what to do. And she was so beautiful, just transparently. She didn't do what I thought Christians would do. She didn't judge me. She didn't condemn me. She didn't say I'm going to burn in hell. She just goes, would you like to come to church this Sunday? We have a guest speaker who's speaking, and I think you'll really resonate with them. So I was like, okay, sure. So I go to church on the Sunday, and guys, the guest speaker in church was talking about OnlyFans and was talking about this over-sexualized culture and was talking about what is happening to the next generation. And her name's Melinda Tankard-Reist. She's a part of an organization called Collective Shout. She's been in activism for 40 years now, and she travels around schools all in Australia, and sees firsthand what is happening to our youth, to our young generation. And she said this specific line, and I had no idea what it meant, but she goes, Christians are supposed to be the salt and the light of the earth, and they have failed, and we are destroying the next generation. And that's when everything clicked for me. And I went, oh my gosh, what we're doing is wrong. This is bad. I'm not crazy. Like, this is wrong. And so when she finished speaking, I literally ran down to her and I went up to her and said, hi, my name's Victoria. I work for an OnlyFans agency and I hate myself. And she was so beautiful. Again, didn't do what I thought maybe Christians would do. She just goes, would you like to have lunch with me? And so this beautiful woman sat with me for hours and she answered my questions. Isn't this positive, ethical, liberating, the better way to do porn, all the lies that I believed, right? And she just answered my questions. And it was so profound and it was so impactful that was on the Sunday, that by the Friday, so 5 days later, I quit the agency. I walked away from a 13-year friendship. I walked away from my dream businesses. I walked away from everything. A couple of weeks later, I'm actually sober. I'm baptized. And for now, almost 2.5 years, we've been traveling the world now, speaking out against OnlyFans and trying to educate people in the reality of what's been going on. So yeah, that's how I left.
Thank you so much, Victoria. It's such a good story.